Let's start from the Caucasus. Armenia, Azerbaijan. That's what I meant. The Deputy Secretary General was just in the region in the past couple months, and it seems like there is a new momentum in the region related to these two countries. Talk to us about the programs or the methods with which NATO is trying to help these countries increase their resilience, think about defense and overall partnership with NATO.
I think historically the Caucasus has been a region of great interest for NATO. We have other countries in the region. There's Turkey, which is right next door. It's a next-door neighbor. And the three countries of the Caucasus, so Georgia, Armenia and Azerbaijan, have strong relations with different NATO countries. So NATO has always been interested in the region and has always wanted to work with those countries in the region. With Armenia and Azerbaijan, as you mentioned, the Deputy Secretary General, Radmila Shekarinska, has recently been to the region. She's visited both countries. And I think this is an indication of the importance that we place in the relationship with those two countries, but with Georgia as well. And the relationship with Georgia has been over many decades. In terms of the practical cooperation that we have with the countries, firstly with Georgia, as I said, we've developed that over many, many years, and that's a very deep relationship. In particular with the Georgian Defence Forces, who have fought valiantly alongside NATO soldiers in different regions. They continue to serve alongside NATO forces in some places. And this cooperation is very, very appreciated by NATO. With Armenia and Azerbaijan, we've had the levels of the relationship have been less, they've been lower. But we're now beginning to step up and look at ways of how we can cooperate more deeply with both of those nations. And you mentioned resilience in particular, and maybe if I could just focus on that for a second. Here, resilience is something which is very important for all NATO countries, but for our partner countries as well. So looking at how they can better protect and defend themselves well below the threshold of a conventional conflict or a conventional attack. And we see in the world today, there's all sorts of threats out there, be it cyber threats or threats to energy infrastructure, disinformation. And if we work together as allies and with partners as well, we can help build our security against these threats.
Armenia has elections coming up. It's pivoting away from Russia and getting closer to NATO. So are there any particular programs that you envision with Armenia? Is there something new happening with Armenia as it comes to defense assistance, whether it's for conventional defense or against hybrid operations?
I mean, there are a lot of possibilities for us to work with Armenia. One thing I should say right from the outset, though, is that any cooperation we have with any partner country, it has to fit in the intersection of what's in NATO's interest, but also what the partner country wants and what is in the partner country's interest. So we never force any cooperation on any partner, and Armenia is the same. So here we have fairly regular discussions with Armenian officials about the sort of cooperation that we can develop together. For the time being, we have quite good cooperation in the field, for example, of defense education, and we have a well-established program working with the Armenian Ministry of Defense and Armenian Armed Forces on defense education, but also a program that we call Building Integrity, which looks at anti-corruption and transparency in the defense and security sector. And we can develop more strands of work like this with Armenia going forward.
Do you envision any sort of maybe joint cooperation between the Caucasus countries, or is that something that we're not there yet?
I would very much hope that we will be able to do more along those lines. We have had cooperation between at least two of the Caucasus countries working together in different formats in recent years. So we have different projects, and for example, we have projects under our Science for Peace and Security program, which does joint research cooperation between allies and partners. And here we can have cooperation between different partners. Over the future, at the end of the day, the Caucasus geographically is a fairly small region. And if we can find ways to bring the countries together to cooperate more together, that would be great. Georgia could be a good venue for this going forward, for example.
Talk to us more about the capacity building as it comes to the Russian information threats, again, hybrid operations, overall malign activities that are not conventional military threats but still threaten the security of these countries. Do you have specific programs in each of the countries or maybe the region-wide program? How do you address that particular threat coming from Russia towards the region?
While we certainly consider Russia the biggest threat as far as NATO is concerned, and for some partner countries that is also the case, we don't particularly address our programs against any one country. So it's more looking at building capacity, building resilience in partner countries, whatever the threat actor. So we've seen other countries such as China or Iran, for example, that use the same hostile tactics as Russia against partner countries. So we try to develop those capabilities in a way that countries can use them to protect themselves against any threat, wherever the threat comes from. Here we have a number of programs that we've developed within NATO and we use with partners as well. You mentioned strategic communications, and here, for example, we do a lot of work with other partner countries, including Moldova, some partners in the south like Jordan as well. So looking at how those countries can strengthen their publics against disinformation, misinformation coming from outside or indeed from inside the country, from different threat actors. So we do a lot of that already, and we can always do more in the region.
Talk to us more about Moldova and the partnership with Moldova. It's a country that's also in a very difficult situation, is getting on the U.S. is paying more attention to Moldova, it seems like, much like Armenia and Azerbaijan. What are overall sort of expectations of Moldova-NATO relations moving forward?
We have a very strong partnership with Moldova, which has developed over many decades. Now we do a lot of practical cooperation with Moldova, and in particular, given their geographic situation, so up against, sandwiched between Ukraine and Romania, with part of their territory occupied by Russia as well. It's a classic case where NATO can help them develop their defence forces and help them develop their defence capabilities to better provide security for themselves. So in particular, in recent years, we've worked with them quite a lot. Disinformation is one of the topics that we worked with them on, but also cybersecurity, for example, but also just general capacity building for their armed forces, including work on, for example, recruitment into the armed forces, so that they have a more modern set of forces to better be able to defend the country.
And from your vantage point, do you see Moldova becoming more active with NATO? Because they are a neutral country, they have not applied for membership or they are not candidates. Do you see any change, especially since 2022 invasion?
They have their neutrality, and a lot of the partners that we work with, including, for example, Austria and Switzerland, they also have neutrality. So different partner countries can have different types of neutrality, but that doesn't stop a level of cooperation that we can develop with the countries. With Moldova, again, going back to a point I made earlier, anything that we do with Moldova is at the request of Moldova. We don't force anything on the country. So whatever they want to work with us on, then we can find a way to work with them. It has changed since 2022. They felt more exposed. They felt more vulnerable. They've identified areas of weakness that they need to be able to address to be able to better defend themselves. And this is where they've come to us to ask us for particular help and support, and we've been able to provide it.
Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, full-scale invasion, has changed many things in the region and potentially even globally. Has it impacted NATO's outlook on the region as it comes to resilience, capacity building, and the assistance that NATO provides to its partners?
Before 2022, NATO had a strong relationship with a number of individual partners, but it was, in terms of the practical cooperation, it was with most partners, it was at a fairly low level. But I think after the invasion, then allies began to realise the importance of partnerships more generally, they recognize the importance of the capacity building work that we'd done with Ukraine before the full-scale invasion and the benefits that that gave Ukraine and how elements of that work helped Ukraine resist the initial Russian attack. And so now more value is placed in the work that we do with partners. This has allowed us to step up the work with countries such as Moldova, but also Bosnia and Herzegovina, for example, which has a different exposure and a different set of vulnerabilities. But we have a lot more capacity to be able to work with these countries to help them develop their defense and security.
How optimistic are you about the region and where this leads us, the relationships between the three Caucasus countries and NATO, and maybe even the wider Black Sea region? How do you see the future of this?
For the Caucasus region itself, I'm very optimistic. I think, in particular, what we've seen over recent months, and in August last year, the agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan has given a momentum to further settling in a peaceful peace process in the region. That I think then if we can solidify that, make that more concrete, we can get really strong cooperation between the countries in the region. That will be of benefit to NATO, it'll be of benefit to individual NATO nations and wider Black Sea security as well. So I'm optimistic. At the same time, there's a lot of work that's got to be done. There are a lot of issues that need to be resolved. But I think if we work hard on these, then we'll be able to make progress.
You mentioned Georgia in a couple of contexts, and you say that the partnership with Georgia continues. Tell us more about the partnership with Georgia, the history of it, where we are now, and how you feel about that partnership moving forward.
Well, it's a long historic partnership, as I mentioned earlier, and I think everybody in NATO recognizes the contribution that in particular that the Georgian Defence Forces have made to regional security, but wider security in the Euro-Atlantic area. And the Georgian contribution, for example, in Afghanistan is remembered by all NATO nations, and I think Georgia can be proud of the contribution that it made. We maintain those relationships, in particular with the Georgian Defence Forces and with the Ministry of Defence as well, and we have a lot of practical cooperation work which is going forward. Obviously, the political chapeau, if you like, in the country now is much more complicated. NATO and NATO nations have expressed clear opinions about the direction of travel in Georgia right now. We hope that we're going to be able to maintain and then rebuild a relationship along the lines that we had previously. We have a lot of joint interest potentially between Georgia and NATO nations, and we'd like to go back to building on those joint interests.